Show. I am your host, Patty G, here with Rob from Flying Tiger Brewery. We are on location. They are closed to the public, but we were able to get in here for a little private podcast recording. So thank you so very much for that. I really appreciate it, man.
Hey, we're excited for you to be here. I appreciate you making the drive up. Most people don't come from, Monroe is a great town. And as you said when you drove, you didn't realize how big Monroe is.
I did not.
And so Monroe's actually got a lot going on. It's got a lot of fun stuff. We love this city. We're proud of it. But South Louisiana doesn't know much about Monroe and doesn't really come up here much unless there's a business occasion or a wedding or a funeral. And so
Right.
We're not the biggest tourist destination as far as when we're talking about South Louisiana. There's a lot of reasons to go to South Louisiana. We know those. There's Baton Rouge is the capital. We've got government stuff. We've got LSU. We've got New Orleans and all the things that means with the Saints, the Pelicans, Bourbon Street, Mardi Gras, et cetera, Jazz Fest. And so we don't have a ton of stuff to draw the people who are down there to come up here. So I've got a lot of people that love our beer in South Louisiana. I'd love to, do a little shout out to Baton Rouge and New Orleans, both. Which have treated Flying Tiger just like we're a hometown brewery. They have a good attitude towards craft beer and towards what they consider local. And basically, if you're made and produced in the state of Louisiana, they treat you like local, and they've done a great job doing that to us. And so, but I've had a lot of guys that love our beer and love our stuff and say, man, one day I'm going to make it up to the brewery and stuff. So, but as you can see a little bit about our brewery in the background, we've got it. We have we're one of the few places that have really a huge outdoor space here. We're on a corner with this huge corner lot fenced in with patio and outdoor dining area, etc. So we've got a nice place for you to come visit. If you happen to be coming through Monroe, just stop in. We're right off the freeway.
Well, you are right off the interstate, so you're right off 20. And when
Right.
I got here, it was an easy drive. I mean, I left Baton Rouge around 4:15. So I got here for about 7:22 or something like that. So it wasn't a bad drive, and there was hardly any traffic. So for Baton Rougeans, we know we love no traffic.
Right.
So, I mean, it was an easy drive, well worth the drive so far. I've had some of your product before. I'm excited to drink what we've got here tonight. But for those that, in Baton Rouge and may not know of Flying Tiger Brewery, what are y'all? What kind of beer do y'all have? Let's get some background going.
Yeah, so a little bit about the name Flying Tiger. We take our name after the Flying Tigers from World War II. You can see the shark nose. You can see the shark nose P-40 nose of the plane in the background. I hope you can see that behind us. Those are obviously an iconic, plane from World War II. The Flying Tigers kind of made that plane famous. They flew it. Without going into all the details, but the Flying Tigers were a fabulous story, a great story from World War II, one that actually I think Louisiana people should know more about. And so what I would say is go ahead and Google later Flying Tigers, AVG wiki page. There's plenty to read there. But what you want to know is this, that General Chenault, who was the commander of the Flying Tigers, was a Louisiana boy. He graduated from LSU. He's listed on the LSU page as one of their top alumni, their top 10 alumni. They've got one of these planes, not exactly like that, but painted purple and gold inside the LSU bookstore. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's a big hanging thing there. Okay. And again, that's that association that they're tying the university with these Flying Tigers. After the war, General Chenault came here to Monroe and lived here, and this is where he was residing when he passed away. So we have the Chenault Aviation and Military Museum here in Monroe. It's run by his granddaughter, Nell Calloway, and they have a wing dedicated to the Flying Tigers, and there's a lot of things around the state named Chenault. We have several here, of course. We've got Chenault Golf Course, Chenault Park. We've got the Chenault Museum. You go to Lake Charles, they have the Chenault International Airport. They've got one of these Flying Tiger P-42s hanging at the USS Kidd in downtown Baton Rouge. It's part of that display there. It's on the other side of the wall, so you kind of have to go on the tour to see it or peek through the fence. So So all that's to say, we took our name after that to pay homage to this group and to kind of celebrate all the Louisiana connections that we had to the Flying Tigers. We did seek the blessing of Miss Calloway and the family just to make sure they didn't think we were doing something that was disrespectful or flippant or something, and she was all on board. Anything to kind of keep the legacy alive of the Flying Tigers and maybe tell the story a little bit so a younger generation who know nothing about World War II or the Flying Tigers and their significance,
Right.
maybe we'll go tonight and wiki this and do a little reading about them. And so she was all for it. We're corporate sponsors of the museum, of course. And so anyway, that's the reason why we have that name. We chose Monroe, of course, because it's our hometown. My partner, James Simpson, who does all the brewing and handles all that, and I want to talk about that later, but who handles all that, and a third gentleman, David Johnson, and I founded the company. We all live here in Monroe, West Monroe. And when we got ready, we started planning this brewery, 2014, 2015. You know, we looked on the map and we just realized that, you know, Monroe had a lot going on, but they didn't have a brewery, and there was a brewery void in the north part of the state. The only brewery that was open at that time as we were in planning, it was Great Raft over in Shreveport, which is,
Okay.
you know, 90-something miles away.
Right,
So
way,
that was the
way
closest.
north of here.
Yeah, well, west
west,
on
yes.
I-20 in Shreveport. So they were the closest one, and we thought maybe that Northeast Louisiana could use one.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the initial, thoughts behind starting the brewery.
I love it, and it's like you said whenever I got here, people don't typically come out to Monroe. It's not the quote unquote touristy destination, but it seems like it's starting to get something to bring people here. I mean, the Flying Tiger, not only the brewery, but everything that you'll have going on here, it's kind of hopeful to say, hey, come check all this stuff out, because I find that really fascinating about all the World War II connections and how you've kind of pieced that together with the city that you're in.
Well, and I appreciate that. There's a lot going on in downtown. We've been talking about the renaissance of downtown Monroe for quite a while. And the reality is, it's happening, but not at the pace that you might be if you were in some Nashville or Dallas and something took off in an area. That area would have a transformation a lot quicker. Still slower, but it's still going on. It's moving in the right direction. There's a number of restaurants and bars and stuff in this area to help kind of, attract people to come to this area, which had been kind of dead for a long time. And it's slowly but surely happening. And so we're part of that, and we're glad to be part of it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it a whole lot, and I want to get Monroe more on my map of travel destinations and coming out here. I love to golf, so you've got a golf course out here. You've already got me coming back for round 2.
Awesome. We'd love to have you back. Yeah, we'll host you, and maybe we'll be open at that time too.
That's what I'm talking about. So I want to get so y'all opened up in 2016, and y'all been brewing craft beer, and now you've got even a seltzer.
Correct.
So before we get into that, how have y'all kind of managed throughout this COVID situation? I know obviously we're closed here, so what are y'all doing to kind of combat that?
So it's a tough. So for breweries, it's a double-edged sword. It's not just your tap room. So here's the thing that people may not know about a craft brewery up to a certain size. Really, a craft brewery pays its bills and keeps the lights on with the tap room, right? Mm-hmm. We make the beer, we sell you the beer.
Right.
We have the most potential to make money, and that money is used to fund the rest of this operation, so to speak. Not a lot of money's made off of distributed beer. That beer that goes out the back door to the distributor that ends up in grocery stores and bars and restaurants at our level of volume is what I'm trying to say. It doesn't, I'm not saying it's not profitable, but the margins are thin, and you spend a little bit of money out there doing some marketing or hiring a salesperson. You
got more fixed costs.
That's right.
Filled in with the distribution side of the beer.
That's correct. And so those costs are there, and you need to get to a pretty nice level of distribution before that really becomes pays off. So now back to your question about COVID. Well, a lot of restaurants and bars were closed down for a while. And although they're slowly opening back up and some have picked up steam, they're not quite back to where they were. So that also affected our volume out the back door. So what we relied on heavily during this time was to-go sales, and we're very thankful for the support we got. James, again, our brewer, did a number of one-off beers or new beers that we only released in the tap room. So even though we weren't open, if you wanted to pick up a 4-pack of one of the juicy variations that he made, he's made a couple. The first one was a blood orange, sold out. This is blackberry coconut, and I look over there, and there's not much of this left. It'll probably sell out this week.
Okay.
But what we did was we didn't release these in distribution. So if you wanted one of these, you needed to come to the tap room. So we did a couple of variations of some beers that we do. We did a double dry hop final resting place. And we made these seltzers during COVID. And the seltzers are only place you can get them are here at the brewery. You want to grab a 6-pack, you got to come here to get it. Part of that strategy, but part of it is also we're still trying to perfect the seltzers before we put any out locally or anything like that. But that was a big help, him doing that. We drove some traffic here, and we had some decent days during that time, which meant a lot to us to kind of keep it going. You know, as a business, you have a couple of options. I mean, you either got to, if your revenue's cut off and you've got set fixed expenses, I mean, you don't really have much options. It's either got to come out of your pocket or you got to get a loan.
Right.
And we were able to get an SBA small loan, which is very helpful, and will kind of get us through there. We did get a little pay protection money that we were able to keep employees on board during that time as well. But that's still another loan at some point at the end of the day has got to be paid back, monthly. So
you got to get people back in the door.
We got to get people back in the doors, which kind of leads me to a sensitive area about COVID and bars, and particularly I'm saying breweries. We've never been open past 10 o'clock anyway during the week. In fact, we closed at 9, 11 on Fridays and Saturdays. So we weren't your late night kind of bar hopping spot. We had a nice crowd. We had fun events. We did have people in here, and that mattered. So currently it's the formula that the governor's given, and I want to say this up front. Flying Tiger believes in wearing masks, having masks. We made masks, we sold masks, we logoed some masks. We want you to wear a mask. We're one of the only places I've been that has this number of, the month we were open in June, we got open briefly during June, and then everything got shut back down again.
Right.
During that time, I mean, we probably had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 7 sanitation stations with sanitizer. We were cleaning tables. We were doing the social distancing. We removed tables, spread them out, removed bar stools, limited our capacity on the inside and outside, and it was working fine. Then we had this spike this summer, and things got closed down. My problem with this situation is, and I'm just going to be blunt, is that, not everybody plays by the rules. And I'm not talking about bars and breweries. I'm talking about restaurants that are back open. Like, I don't know what the rules are. But currently, I can go to my favorite spots, and it's elbow to elbow. There's no tables missing. There's people packed at the bar, and I'm happy about that. Let me make this clear. I'm happy about it. I want them to be open and making money.
Right.
But here I am with crickets chirping, and they're elbow to elbow. You can't tell me that that's any different than my place of business. I'm willing to open with social distancing in place, but so we've got this formula that we have, and I'm not picking on the formula, but the formula is it's a 5% positivity rate, which is determined by the number of tests given each week by the number of positive tests. So you take the number of positive tests, divide it by the overall take, right. Less than 5%, which is 1 out of 20. So if 1 out of 20 test positive, we're not going to be open, and it has to happen 2 weeks in a row. Mm-hmm. 1 out of 21, we're open, but 1 out of 20, we're closed, and we have to have that 2 weeks in a row. I had a friend who joked the other day and said, hey, what we need to do is just do a little rally and get everybody who we know is not sick to go down and go ahead and take the test in Wash Del Paris so we can get this rate down, and y'all can open. Because there's a lot of people understand that everyone wants to be serious and everybody wants to be safe, but it's elbow to elbow around here, and I'm empty. And that rubs me the wrong way because I feel like it should be applied across the board. I do understand the young people went out to the bars, and I know that, but, there's adults going to bars, as well that are responsible. And so I think you have to apply it across the board. A restaurant, in my opinion, honestly, is no different than a bar.
Right.
If there's no separation of people.
Yeah, if you're every other table.
That's right. But if every table's full and the bar is full, I don't think that's fair to me. I don't want them not to do it. I just don't think it's fair to the breweries. And so Ouachita Parish, for whatever reason, can't get below that 5% rate. My other concern with that, and I'll get off the COVID thing, is that people who are being tested now, and this is my opinion. I don't know if I've got statistics that I've researched to back this up, but I feel like we're at a point now that only people being tested are people who think A, they've been exposed, or 2, they don't feel well and feel like they're symptomatic of it. Mm-hmm. So that's going to make that 5% harder to get to. Right. If everybody goes, oh my God, everybody go out and get tested, we'd be under 5% because we don't have 5% of the population here with it. Yeah. And so we'd get under it. So that's another thing. I'm scratching my head going, this 5%, I don't know if we're ever going to get back open. And
maybe
nobody's talking about it because the breweries aren't enough of us, and there's not enough of us hurting, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and maybe we're not being squeaky enough, but maybe somebody down in Baton Rouge will see this, and maybe we need to get to talking about how to apply this rule across the board and not single out bars. Even though Flying Tiger's not technically a bar, we're a manufacturer with a tap room attached to it. The only thing you can sell in a distributing brewery, and this is an important point, is the beer you make on premise. So I don't have any liquor, I don't have any wine, I don't have any outside other beers or products to sell. I can only sell our stuff. I can sell non-alcoholic stuff, of course, but we're not a bar. But I understand how people feel like this is a bar at the same time as well. Right. But the breweries are kind of in the pinch here, and we do a lot to drive income and tourism. We mentioned Monroe as a destination. Everywhere I go, somewhere new, I Google breweries, and I see what's there. I see if anything catches my eye, and I've heard of this one. I wanted to try this beer. I go there. That happens here. Right before, we were about to start this, and the phone was ringing, right? Somebody's calling to find out we're open or what our hours are, and we get those calls all day long. Again, I'm not whining. I'm just saying we got to play fair.
We're just having a conversation.
We're having a conversation. We understand the seriousness of it, but we also got to balance that with at least applying the rule to everyone. Right. You can't just pick out people, and that's my struggle with it.
Yeah, and on the topic of going to different cities and even in your own state and looking for breweries, that's what I have a fascination with. If I'm going on vacation, I'm going to look for a brewery, a distillery, whatever they have there that's local. That's what I'm drinking. Every restaurant, every place I go, I'm just like, what do you have? What do you have that's local? What do you have? I can get domestic or whatever any day long, but as long as you got something local, great. If not, cool. Bring me an Ultra. Yeah. But other than that, it's
Ultra. Oh, you just lost credibility, Patty G. I'm kidding.
We're done. We're done for the night. So, but breweries they're fascinating because you can go and tour them and you get to learn about the process behind it. And so what do y'all offer tours before COVID? Were y'all touring the facility? What does that kind of back end look like before COVID hit?
That's a great thing. We always welcome tours. We didn't make it a part of our formula probably to just, set tours up. Probably, maybe we should. One of the things that I find fascinating that there's people that come in here, and as you look around, you don't see anything that says brewery in here really, as far as the atmosphere.
I mean, you need some hot plates, you can make it a restaurant.
I mean, we tried to create an ambiance in here that's a little bit different. Excuse me. Sorry about that. One of the that seltzer is effervescent made me come up a little bit. What a lot of people, and since they can't see this on camera, but you can, this back wall. Right. No one knows that on the other side of that wall is a massive manufacturing facility for beer. Some people come here, not often, but don't realize that we're making all this beer right over here. And most breweries have a clear glass view of what's going on. That wasn't in place here, and in order to put that glass in, they would have changed the rules about this building. It would since it's a firewall, and we'd have had to put sprinklers throughout the building. Every single part would have to have sprinklers. Right. And at the time, we just needed to get this place open and didn't have,
This really adds to the ambiance of this brewery in here. I mean, you walk in here and you feel, it's got a unique feel to it. And I love the feel that it has because it's not, glass and up to date and modern. I mean,
Right.
it almost takes you back in time and gets me thinking, what was this building before the brewery got here?
Yeah, no, we've thought a lot about that too and done some research and can't find out exactly what it was. I know at one point it was an auto parts place. But the camera's pointing this way, so they can't see some of these walls on this side. But that plaster, that concrete, we didn't chip any of that. When I tell you this is exactly the way it was when we walked in here, this is exactly the way it was as far as these wall treatments are. We didn't do anything to them. Other than those front walls with the wood is, that was some garage doors, so we did have to build in that storefront up front. But
okay, so from the production side of things, how many beers can y'all produce in a day? What's y'all's output?
So that's a great question. So it's not as simple as how many you can put out in a day. So we have, for those who want to know a little bit more, but I won't go into the boring details. Our system is a 15-barrel system. That means our brewing equipment holds 15 barrels, which is 31 gallons in a barrel. It's about 450 gallons of beer per batch. Okay? So that batch to brew beer without going through the whole process is about 5.5 hours from the start to the finish. Now, when you're done, it's not beer. It's just sugar water that goes into the fermenter, and there's yeast added, among other things, that create the final product. That conversion from sugar water to alcohol, and that's a very simplistic way, but depending on what style of beer it is going to take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks.
Okay, so 2 to 4 weeks from the time we have sugar water, you add the yeast, now we've got beer.
In a simplistic way, yes.
Okay.
Oversimplistic way. So anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. Now, they'll brew sometimes back to back. They've done triple brewing days and that's a long, long day.
That's a 16-hour day.
It is, and they've had them before. If there's anybody from a brewery watching this, they would be shocked to know the size brewery we are, the production, the beers that we have, that we get out in the market, that 2 people back there do everything. That would blow people's mind.
2 people.
2 people, everything from brewing to cellaring to canning to everything. 2 people, counting my partner James and him and one other guy. That's mind blowing. If you, there's people with the breweries this size that at least have 8 people back there working and doing this stuff. And part of that is kind of the financial pinch that we're in with COVID. I mean, we got to be real careful. We got set of expenses and we got a greatly reduced income. And so James and Nate, who really kind of borne the brunt of that on their shoulders back there. I do marketing and sales, and a lot of that slowed. So I'm not. There's a part of me that feels bad that that I can be back there, but I'd probably be more in the way than I would be any help. To be honest with you, I do like to help them when they're doing canning and stuff back there. But it creates a long work week for the 2 of them just to keep up with what we have now as well. So my hat's off to them. So if you're local and you know James and Nate, man, you gotta know what these guys are doing. And if you're in a brewery and and I just tell you that, the beers we produce and what we do, and I tell you 2 guys, not 3, not a part-timer, 2 guys do it all, that's amazing.
Absolutely. So from that one batch, how many cans will you get out of that?
Well, I used to be able to tell you that off the top of my head, but I had to get my calculator out. So there's going to be a little bit of loss and all that. And I mean, if you want to go straight to cans, but if I
just roughly, what does that end product look like from your first batch? How much are you shipping out from there?
I mean, it's going to be, gosh, James would be better at this than I would on telling you the exact math, but 450 gallons times 128 ounces divided by 16 ounces would be 3,600 big boy cans.
Tall boys.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it'd be 3,600 cans. Okay. And now obviously we don't. Currently, this is more true, but in the past, it wouldn't all go to cans. It'd go to kegs because some places want the beer on draft. We have it on draft up here. So it's split up. It's not always cans.
Right.
And 450 gallons is gross. That would be you'd have some waste and some loss and some other things in there, so you don't get that quite. But I would say you'd get probably 3,000 of those cans for sure.
Okay. So going more to the behind the scenes of how did you get started doing this?
So really, this is James. My partner James was, he had was a craft beer guy. It was still early in the game of craft beer. But he was that guy that was drinking other beers and trying some craft beers. And he went to his brother-in-law's house over in Texas, and he had a homebrew kit. And he said, "Man, this is fascinating." His wife was a good listener, picked up on that, and gave him a homebrew kit for Christmas.
Okay.
And this is several years ago. And he started home brewing and was making good beers. And I was coming over drinking beers. James, by the way, in a life a long time ago, I used to be a youth minister at a church. James used to be in my youth group. Now, I don't know what this says about my youth ministry or not, but
drove him drinking.
That's right. But James is a great brewer, makes great beer, and has done a great job. I'm at his house drinking beer, and James and I had actually a couple of times, both of us, I think, had this little entrepreneurial itch that had not been scratched. And so we'd had a couple other ideas. We had some restaurant ideas that I thought were really forward thinking, and still, I think, are could be done today. We just didn't have the capital, and we just kept. Both of us had jobs, and I was doing things, and he was doing things, and our paths would cross again here and there, and we'd hang out. And I was doing something else, and James had this idea for bringing a craft brewery, and if there's a beer geek in the deal, it was him, right? I mean, he was really into it and was making beer. And when the name Flying Tiger came up, that's kind of when I got excited, because that scratched my entrepreneurial itch, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I can't make beer. I mean, I could have by now learned to do it with him, but really that's his area. I mean, yeah. I leave that to James to be the creative. And he listens to us too, though, as a group. We have ideas, we share them, and sometimes he loves our ideas. Oh, was that me?
I think that's your watch.
Oh, sorry. I think Siri thought I was talking to her.
Maybe.
Anyway, he listens to our ideas but he's also got his finger on the pulse. Blah blah blah. And so James wanted this, but I got entrepreneurially interested when the name Flying Tiger came up, and then I realized the connections we have, even locally. One of them that I missed was our local university, the ULM Warhawks. Chose the name. They used to be Northeast Louisiana Indians.
Okay.
That wasn't politically correct, and they were asked to move away from that name. And so when they rebranded and came back, they came up with the name Warhawk. And in part, in a large part actually, was because this is a P-40 Warhawk plane. Now, if you go out to ULM, the Warhawk, the bird that's their mascot, wears a pilot's outfit. They have a golf cart that has the shark mouth on it that they drive around like a little plane. They use all this sort of Flying Tiger imagery in their branding. And so when I realized, getting back to the beginning of this company, and I realized what the connections were and how significant they were to Louisiana, to Monroe, and throughout into LSU and Baton Rouge, I thought, man, we got something, we got a brand. I think it might have some legs to it. This isn't Jimmy's Brewery, and this ain't Bob's Brewery. Right, it's Flying Tiger. We've got a story that's a real story. It's not our story. It's an actual historic story that we can hang our hat on, and we can tell, and we can take that and do that. And tell that story, keep that legacy alive. And so I got interested in that. That got me excited, right? As far as branding and merchandising and marketing. I don't do it all by myself. We've got a team of people. We've got one guy who has, taken our thoughts and created every can design that we have, every poster, can, artwork been created by one guy, Jason Byron Nelson. I want to do a shout out to him. He's got an art show coming up here in Monroe at Parish Restaurant. Check him out. I don't want you to steal him from my business, but because he's good and I can afford him. And again, it's not solely me. James has ideas. Mark, we have ideas about beer. He listens. He's got ideas about branding. It's still a team of stuff, but we kind of specialize in our little areas of responsibilities. But that got me excited. And I was really on the cusp of, I was about to make a big move somewhere else. Right when this brewery, it came to either, kind of fish or cut bait. It was like, am I in or am I out? And do I want to do it? And I decided to do it. And I thought the driving thought was, one, it was scratching that entrepreneurial itch. And two, I wondered would I be able to live with myself later if I hadn't done it and I stayed in the corporate world, which was a good job, and there's times I wish I had that job, right now sometimes, that I had some income to be able to support my family. Anyway, I don't know if I forgot where I was going with all that, but that was kind of the idea. That's kind of how this thing got off the ground. And then from there, we built a business plan, a model, ideas, developed that out, and happenstance, so to speak, we made this pitch that wasn't supposed to be a pitch, but we made a pitch off the cuff to some friends who had a little group of folks that they were looking to invest in something, and they got the pitch and they joined us in this. So it's me, James, and that are the managing partners that run the company. David was one of the founders, and then we have a small group of investors, a handful that really have supported us and are a part of our board. We call that our board of directors. We meet, to discuss the future, the back, what's going on, and handle all these things together. So we're a real small group, even not only employee-wise, but even in ownership.
Yeah, it's a closely knit group that's able to, you're kind of able to pivot and make decisions without having to go through a big long list of qualifications to make those decisions.
Right.
It
and does help that.
And that, hearing you say that y'all created this business plan, you created this, this platform, what you wanted to do with the company, and then had a non-pitch pitch is like every entrepreneur is like vision.
Right.
Like, I'm going to get my business plan, get my slides together, and I'm going to give a pitch and get funding, and we'll get everything off the ground. But like you said, it was happenstance.
Right.
Y'all were probably meeting, having dinner or something, and it came up in conversation. And they're like, well, we've actually got a group looking to invest. Why don't we talk more in detail about this and see what the numbers come out to be?
Yep. So the way it actually happened, which is very similar to that, we had a buddy, Brian, who was a CPA, and I was doing some, and my background is not finance, although I was in the finance industry and in the municipal bond industry, but finance to a point of more like CPA stuff was not my niche. And so I was asking a couple of questions about filling out this pro forma. And they started asking, well, what's this for? And that's how that pitch. Well, and I told them what we were doing and what our goal was, and we were trying to, attract some investors. Or at this time, we were still contemplating, possibly doing an SBA like loan for the business.
Right.
And they said, well, why don't you give us the pitch? Let's hear it. I mean, literally on the spot, I'm sitting in the office and three guys come in and boo the pitch, and that's what happened. So. Worked out good because they're good dudes. They got good ideas. They're passionate about the brewery. They've got their own lives. They got their successful careers in other places. They got families. They got other things, and they trust us to do the day-to-day. But they're involved.
Right. Yeah, and I think for anybody who's looking to start investing, whenever you get that first initial leap to invest, you're very hesitant to put money in. But once you get through that and you trust the people that are running it, 9 times out of 10, you invest in the entrepreneur, not in the business idea.
Right. Well, I mean, we didn't have a beer yet. I mean, we had homebrew, but we didn't have the beer. We hadn't decided what beers, what styles. They were investing in James and myself, and also in that idea of what this brand was and what we thought it could be. And it's been slow. I mean, in the sense of there was a big rush of craft breweries, right? And then there became a saturation point almost too. And so where distributors in South Louisiana were ready to grab every craft brewery, yes, come join our team, till it went, we may need to slow down. And then we had to kind of fight through that, prove ourselves, prove our brand, prove our beer, prove our strategy.
Right.
And so literally we just launched we launched in Baton Rouge 2 years ago, and we launched in New Orleans this past January. Had about a month's worth of time to get work and get stuff doing. Did several events, was in several places down there. Met some great people that were helping us with Crescent Crown. Had a buddy with Brewed and Distilled out of New Orleans that was helping us get in some doors, and everything was going pretty good. And then COVID came along, And so, it's ironic that I think today the announcement was that the bars are going to be able to open back in New Orleans. See, their parish had already been below the 5% threshold, but there was a concern that Bourbon Street would quickly turn into a spreader, and so they've kept that closed. Now, I don't know all the details of it, but I believe they're open, and that means that I'll hopefully be back down there calling on some businesses and trying to push some more Flying Tiger beer around.
Yeah, and I think that is going to, whenever bars and breweries can get to that point where they're starting to, breweries specifically, call out undue sales calls, I think they're just going to wake up, like, pop out of bed at 4 a.m. and say, let's get the sales calls.
During this time, there's a little bit of marketing I can do, and most of it is sales calls. Mostly it's to the direct, to the bar itself, right?
Right.
But kind of our strategy though is also going out and getting the liquid to the lips and getting out with people and letting them try our beers. As a brewery that's from North Louisiana and we're still introducing ourselves to places in South Louisiana, people want to try the beer. Well, they're not really ready for me to come out and start handing out samples during COVID time just yet. So, but we're doing stuff. It is slowly getting back on track, and hopefully we'll catch some steam, soon.
Yeah, and I think that, events are starting to pop up in a controlled fashion, and people are starting to get back out into a normal routine. I know I've done an event a couple weeks ago with the Bourbon Society of Baton Rouge. We did Lost Cove, and we had a small group of like 30 people come out, and it was a ticketed event. And I've got another event in November with Jada Cody out at Point Marie. Now we're going to be doing another live event, with a controlled group, but we're starting to see that events are slowly picking back up. So maybe it's, let's reach out to this place and let's have a small beer tasting event, While it may be 50 or 60 people, depending on the size of the event and the space, it's still getting the liquid to the mouths, like you said. And just that one step after another, and then you've got people going to their local grocers, and they're asking, do you carry Flying Tiger? If I go to Rouse's, I'm going to say, hey, do you carry Flying Tiger?
You'll find it there.
And then if you're going somewhere else that may not carry it, people say, okay, well, let me call my distributor. Hey, do you have Flying Tiger? I had 6 people come in today and ask about it.
Ask for Flying Tiger. Help us out.
Absolutely.
And you won't be disappointed. I tell you what makes my job easy is knowing that the product is good.
Right.
We've got some beers that this one we hadn't drank yet. We got Juicy, and man, that looks beautiful. Looks like orange juice. We've got some beers that kind of put us on the map. Juicy, the original Juicy is one of those. Final Resting Place, which was the beer that really kind of got the beer geeks excited in South Louisiana. It's our New England style double IPA. Rated by them as one of the best ones, and there's a lot of good ones. So I don't want to claim our stuff's best, because I think it can almost change yearly, like with different beers. So we're proud of those beers. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
We've got our flagship beers are great. We've got plenty of great beers. We're going to add another Juicy Hazy beer to this lineup as well. And then I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm excited about seltzers. Now we decided, and I love the fun side. Let me tell you, I want to put fun in beer. If beer's not fun, what are we doing, right?
Yeah.
If we can't have fun with beer, what are we doing, right?
Yeah.
So I want to have fun. I like doing silly stuff. I like pushing the envelope a little bit. The people that are familiar with our brand in Baton Rouge know some of the things I've done to push the envelope a little bit with some of our marketing during LSU football games and stuff like that. And I like having fun with it. I want to be careful. I don't want to offend anybody, but I like having fun. If we're not having fun, beer should not be snobbery. Beer should be fun. It should still, there is a lot to enjoy and learn, and there is an etiquette and stuff involved with all this, but we got to be having fun too, and I like to have fun. So,
right.
I wear, everywhere I go, I wear daily. I have a shirt on that says "Drink Heroic Beer," and just just as I'm a walking billboard, man. I wear it every day, everywhere I go. People are probably tired of seeing me in them, but it's paid off. Last year, I got on a streak. I ended up on TV in the background of LSU's glorious season. I ended up in the background a number of times on TV. When game day came to LSU, when Jada Cody was doing the Home Depot grilling and had the alligator, there I was when John Goodman was there. and he was doing a different dish, and he was there. I was there in the back, and there's all these pictures of me with this drink heroic beer in the background of these things. And then when LSU went to Nashville last year and drank the town dry, I didn't know Nashville could run out of alcohol, but they did.
Clearly they did.
And I was at the LSU alumni event. I'm not an alumni, but we sponsored that event because it's a way that LSU has a deal with a big domestic beer, and so they can't really do anything with me personally or any brewery other than that. So, but out of town like that, we actually sell a little bit of beer in Nashville. So I had a spot. We did something, and then forgive me for forgetting the guy's name. That's a sports guy on a big sports guy on one of the news stations, set up live, and he just set his thing up like your thing right here, and he was standing right there next to me. I was at the table, and I was like, "Is this about to give me a beer? I gotta have a beer." And so he gets live, and I had so many people text me with me in the background going like this.
Flying Tiger
everywhere.
Flying
and drink heroic beer on my shirt and that. Anyway, I love having fun with it, right?
Right.
And so anyway, I'm ready to get back to having fun. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about marketing, especially a brewery. You have to have fun. You have to be creative. People don't want to see the same plain advertising. Drink our beer. You know, it's you riding on a skateboard.
Oh, you saw that?
Absolutely, I saw that. Doing Instagram stories and just drinking the beer and just product placement and placing it in areas where it's going to be seen, to me, is more powerful as a brand than it is for you to push your commercials,
right,
all the time. Now, I'm not saying commercials work 100%, but for somebody who's trying to appeal to a different audience, they want to be sold more on the brand, more on the behind-the-scenes backstory. It's okay. They look like a fun brand. Right. Seeing you going on a skateboard and an Instagram post is like, all right, they're a fun, cool brand. Let's get on board and let's see what their product tastes like. It's you're sold on the brand before you even taste the product.
Well, we hope that works. We hope that works. I mean, we want people to try the beer because I'm convinced we have a beer or a style, because everybody drinks a little something different,
right,
that they'll like. I'm convinced of that. If you're into juicy, hazy beers, I'll put Juicy up against any of them, and there's some great beers. Please don't misinterpret that.
Right.
There are some great beers, and there's some breweries out there that James and I admire and respect and have done a great job, and when they succeed, we're actually happy for them, and we want them to. Not everybody in the beer industry is as friendly as others, but I know who they are, and there's some that we root for, and we're happy for them when they do well. That was leading me to the seltzer. Now, seltzers are not super sexy. There's nothing like out of.
Well, they are now.
Well, they are popular.
They're getting very
and so,
popular.
like my buddy James, who we're close friends. He was in my wedding, I was in his, and he's not super excited about making seltzers because he's more of a purist and a chef, and he loves developing these. But I want to give him some credit because there's people making seltzers, and they ain't that great. And you ain't had ours yet, I know, because it's not in distribution. But this seltzer, crystal clear, like it's supposed to be. Great nose, great flavor, 6% alcohol. When we're ready, we'll release it. We'll put out the nutritional information. Once we're done, we're going to have that done and let you know. And I'm excited about this seltzer getting in the hands of people. Now, we made the seltzer as the backdrop of this story is because not, as I mentioned, the only thing I can sell here alcohol-wise is what we make.
Right.
So there's always somebody in a group that doesn't drink beer, right? Oh, bro, I don't really drink beer. And so, their ideal of beer is a little bit different, but it doesn't matter. They don't drink beer.
That's my wife.
Right. And so we made this seltzer light, refreshing, easy to drink, doesn't taste like a beer because it's technically not like a beer, but it's brewed, and so we're allowed to make it. And so we made this for the tap room originally just because we wanted to have an offering for folks who don't drink beer and wanted something else. And there's some other brews out there that I know James wants to make, a Berliner Weiss. He wants to make some stuff like that don't taste like beers as well, and that'll be coming soon as well. I know he wants to make one of those, and And so we want to have some offerings, and they're delicious, by the way. But we want to have some offerings for some things that don't taste like beer. And we have some, and that was the reason we even started this. We weren't trying to jump on the bandwagon as much as we just wanted to have an offering in the tap room in case there was somebody that didn't like beer. We want to try this. And we got rave reviews when we released it in the tap room. The people came, loved it, and I'm excited about it. When it gets completely perfected, to have it, have it out there and have people try it. I think we'll, I'm not saying we're going to be knocking, Truly and White Claw off the shelf, but
Right.
But I think there's a niche for a local seltzer that's good. There is still local is still a niche. It's still a thing. It's still real. And when I got in this business, I don't think I was truly appreciative of what local meant as much as I am today. I always want to support local before, but now really, we have a choice. Let's and it starts with beer at least. I mean, know where your beers are coming from. I know you may like some of them, but if there's a local option that satisfies what you're looking for, choose the local. And the main reason is because if it's not, that dollar is leaving the state. It's going somewhere else. And trust me, Texas is focusing on Texas beers and other places on their beers. Louisiana needs to focus on, even all the way down to what you have in your fridge when your guests come. You need to have at least a little bit of local beer if you have beer at all, I'm saying.
Right.
Choose the local option if it satisfies what you're looking for and need. And so we know how big seltzers are. I'm hoping that we can compete with them on flavor and on price. And give you an opportunity to choose something local with seltzers. That's kind of where we're headed, but we hope to head, but we'll see.
Yeah, and what is the difference, technically speaking, between a seltzer and a beer? I know in imagery and in flavor, it's entirely different, but the brewing process.
So, without getting into a class on, essentially a beer has four things in it.
Right.
It has water. It has grain, it has yeast, and it has hops. Mm-hmm. Pretty much every beer has those four. Different styles will have additional things as well, right? And so the main difference is that this is made not with grains. It's made with a sugar byproduct. So to explain, that sounds, well, let me tell you how beer is made briefly, is that when you use grain, the grain does two things. One, it provides the color. So all these colors in these beers, including that one, have to do with what color the grain was. Okay. We don't add color to the beer. So it's created by that grain. But what you're doing with that grain is you're extracting all the sugars out of that grain. Remember I said you had that sugar water?
Yeah.
You're just taking all those, you're boiling this up, and not boiling, but you're heating all that up and extracting the sugars out. And you're making sugar water, colored sugar water. Mm-hmm. This is sugar water with no color. So instead of extracting sugars, we just start with a sugar base in this with the hot water.
Okay.
And so this is sugar base. It's not like we're pouring white sugar in there, but it's a sugar base, and it has water and it has flavoring. But it's made with yeast as well, but it doesn't have any hops. Excuse me.
Gotcha. So it's very basic.
It is very, very basic. But let me tell you what. Listen, I can make not me, James. We can make a beer, and it can be whatever we want and call it, right? Mm-hmm. There's no standard, right? It's ours.
Right.
When you get to making beer, like this Burma Blonde, straightforward but delicious lager, tailgater, picnic table, football game kind of beer, crawfish beer. It's a beer. It's harder to make. You know why? Because everyone knows what it's supposed to be like, and it has to be on point.
So you got to meet certain standards.
That's right. When we make something we want, we can call it
Right.
whatever we want. There's nothing else to compare it to. You don't know.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Seltzer's
Seltzer's a little bit more difficult than people thought. Not everybody's got good ones. If you don't believe me, go out and try them. Try some other local seltzers. I'm excited for people to try this one. So that's why I want to, although James isn't like super excited about these, I want to give him a shout out because he's made a good one. And believe it or not, it's a little harder than people think.
Oh yeah, and sometimes it's always harder to make the more commonly known brews than it is to make a very, very craft brew. Because like you said, people expect a certain flavor. They expect a certain level or a range within that brew.
Right.
But if you're making a specific craft brew specific to you, then it doesn't matter what it is.
Right. It may be similar, but
Right.
it doesn't have to be. There's not this real defined range for it to be in
Right.
necessarily.
Yeah. So kind of starting to wrap up, getting to the end of the show. You've done finance in a degree, and you've done youth pastor, and you've also done this brewery now, doing the marketing side of things. What are some lessons you've learned along the way? Maybe 3 different lessons.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that was going to be a question, but and some of this is somewhat cliche, but there's never going to be the perfect time. If you have that entrepreneurial itch, most likely it's not going to go away, and at some point you might have some regrets. Now listen, we all have responsibilities. We all have, mine included a family, right? So you can't just, quit and just say you're going to do something. So, you got to be measured and you got to be careful, and I think for most people, I would say hang on to the real job as long as you can while you're making that transition, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to put all your chips in on one thing at ever, right? So, luckily I've got a wife who supports this, Sarah, and has done a good job. She has a job, thank God, that, makes money, and we can kind of keep our own lights on at the house as well. And, but I would say, gosh, mine are kind of specific to the brewing industry. But if I think about entrepreneurial stuff, I mean, if you're look, I don't know if a business is going to make it or not, right? I mean, I think you got to do your homework. You got to do your due diligence. You got to really think about, are you scratching an itch or are you scratching your own itch? Because there's a difference. Hey, I love this. I think everyone's going to love it. Well, you need to know if you're scratching an itch that's yours or just someone, or if it really belongs to enough people to support your business, that kind of stuff. I mean, no perfect time. So, man, just, I mean, I encourage people to, I don't want them to go all in financially, and be vulnerable, but, I want to encourage you to take that because, listen, I gave up. I was a municipal bond broker. I gave up a lot financially, but I'll be honest with you, I found a lot of satisfaction in just being a part of this brand and helping my partners and I, push this brand forward. Yeah. There's a lot of satisfaction that comes from doing what you love. That's an old saying, do what you love and you never work a day in your life.
There's so much truth to that.
It's true, but James right now doing 16-hour days back there is going, I don't know about that. There's still a little bit of work. I have a feeling. A lot of work. But that's expected. That's part of, so I guess everybody kind of has in their mind, at some point with a business, a sort of financial picture they hope to hit, right? And in between getting that, you think that's the happiness, and you hear people say enjoy the process. And again, I know this sounds cliche, but you know what? You got to enjoy. Listen, like I said, I enjoy having the fun and getting out there. And if I'm going to base it solely on the financial picture, I might not ever be happy, right? I'm not ignoring the bills I got to pay and the responsibilities I have, but man, enjoy. If you like it, then if it's not fun, then why are we doing it? I'd apply that to anything.
Absolutely.
Right? Now listen, there are some times when we have a job that the income overcomes and you go, you know what, I can give up the fun for this, right? And I enjoyed the municipal bond business, mainly because I had relationships with guys out there in the world who were financial advisors, financial planners, who ran big firms with big money. And we made friends, and I enjoyed those relationships and working with those guys and getting to know them and their families and all that. And so I found my own way to get some personal satisfaction out of it, other than the monetary side of it. And you got to. I don't know if I have 3. Let's see.
I think you pretty much nailed. What the message that you're trying to get across is. If you're not having fun with what you're doing in your entrepreneurial journey, why'd you start it?
Right.
If you get in a startup or you get in your own company and you just like, man, this is miserable, I hate what I'm doing, it's like, then why'd you start it in the first place? And maybe having that thought of, oh, I started it because of this, so long as it's not purely derived by monetary aspirations, I think you're going to find yourself along the way being so much happier than if you're staying at this job just for the money.
Right.
people get so driven by the fact that they go, oh, I got to get this money, but it's like, okay, well, there's more to life than just, having all this cash or all this money.
Right.
Now, you can get your time off and go do whatever you want to do. Yeah, that's fine, but you're going to spend a majority of your life working.
And I'm not going to ignore the correlation that exists between, your product and the financial side of it, because that's one way we measure how people respond to us, right? People are buying it. It's like, so I'm not ignoring that part,
Yeah,
right?
course,
You want to make something as James as a beer creator and I as a brander, we want to create something people like, right? I mean, I want you to like it and I want you to buy it. But it's because it's a measure of how well we did, not so much the financial part of it. But everybody's got to make a living, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
again, I'm not
100%.
ignoring the reality, man. Is I'm not making beer so we can go broke.
Right.
We gotta make money.
Right.
And
so you can keep on making the beer.
That's right. Absolutely. That's right.
I love it. So, what is something that you love about Monroe that might attract people to come out here outside of the brewery?
So there's a lot of things that I think you could come to Monroe to do. We've got plenty of stuff around. We've got Black Bayou National Reserve. You can come up and see that. There's a ton of other things within the vicinity of that. We've got lots of parks. We've got Caroli Park that has a biking path on it out there. In West Monroe. We've got. There's other things that can draw you here. We've got Ike Hamilton in West Monroe that has rodeos, BMX events, motocross, we've had those in Monroe too at our own civic center. But I'm just thinking of some stuff that's going on around here. But what we do have is we have one, and again, I consider us the Twin Cities, so I'm not denying what we have in Monroe versus West Monroe. West Monroe, right across the river from in here, is Antique Alley. I'm one of those guys that likes to stroll through there and see if I can find some mid-century modern something laying around that somebody I might pick up. But we've got a great, if you love window shopping and love doing Antique Alley kind of stuff, we've got that right across the river. We've got some, I'll tell you what we've got that you need to come for. We've got some great local restaurants. We've got great chains. We've got walk-ons. We've got all that too, and they support us and they carry our beer. All those chains, Buffalo Wild Wings, etc. So I don't want to ignore the importance of those places. But 2 blocks down, we've got Chef Corey Barr's Parish, who won a number of things, and he was runner-up on the next Top Chef. I forget the exact name of the show, sorry, but we hosted that watch party here. It was great. Jada Cody's been up here and done a food event with Corey here at our brewery. We've got a number of restaurants. I don't want to leave anybody out, but we've got Two Dudes Barbecue. We've got Janusa's. We've got Waterfront. We do have Waterfront Grill, but we also have Warehouse right here. We've got a lot of Catahoula's is a brand new place. Somebody's gonna be mad. That I'm gonna forget them, but we've got a lot of small, independent, great food places in Monroe that come up here that I believe will compete with the things that you would expect if you visited South Louisiana, including New Orleans. We've got some great Italian, we've got some great seafood, we've got some great stuff, and with our own little twist on it. So restaurants shouldn't be ignored when you come up here, and I'm probably forgetting some other things that would bring you a number. We've got ULM, we've got the university, got a great pharmacy school, nursing school, top-rated stuff. We now have a medical school that just opened this year as part of the ULM campus as well. We've got this phenomenal water ski team that's won 20 national championships and stuff like that. So we've got water, we've got bayou, we've got the Ouachita River, we've got stuff to do. If you want to know what to do, I would say go to Discover Monroe, West Monroe. It's the Visitor Center's convention here, and they'll have a lot of things there for you to find that you can do and see what's going on in this kind of Twin City area.
Perfect, man. Thank you so much for that. And for one final question is, what can I do to help you?
That's a great question. You know, I think you're doing it, which is you're highlighting local people doing stuff. I want to encourage people. At the same time, you're giving an opportunity to remind people of how important it is to buy local, because it keeps that money in the economy. Whatever money I might get out of this is going to be spent right back here, right? It's going to be spent in the state of Louisiana. And I can't tell you how important that is when I look at that kind of that flow of that economic dollar. What you can do for us is you're doing it. You're giving us some exposure through your show to tell people about Flying Tiger, the connection we have not only to Monroe but to the state, to LSU. We're in New Orleans, so we'll be back there now that the bars are opening.
Absolutely.
We'll be down there pushing some product and introducing you to it.
I love it, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate your time. It was, for me, well worth the drive to come out here for sure.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for making the trip. We're honored to have you.
Absolutely. And for those watching or listening, thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Be sure and check out the Flying Tiger Brewery and make a trip out here to Monroe, Louisiana. It's a little drive, but it's definitely worth it. You will for surely not be disappointed. And y'all for listening and watching, I'm Patty G from the Patty G Show here with Rob, Flying Tiger. Y'all have a good one. Thanks.
Drink a rug beer.
Yeah.